Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Terra Station, watching 12 billion human lives vanish from her tactical display in the span of 37 seconds. No explosions, no distress calls, no final transmissions from the colony, worlds of New Geneva, Kepler's Garden, and Haven Prime. Just silence. "Admiral," whispered Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb, his dark skin pale as ash. "The quantum communications array is still functional. We should be receiving something. Anything." Sarah's fingers gripped the edge of the holographic display table until her knuckles turned white. 43 years she'd served humanity among the stars. She'd seen pirates, asteroid strikes, even the brutal Centauri raids of 2387. But this was different. This was impossible. "Run full spectrum analysis on all 3 systems," she ordered, her voice steady despite the ice forming in her veins. "Check for gravitational anomalies, stellar activity, anything that could explain—" "Ma'am!" The voice belonged to Ensign Kim Rodriguez, barely 22 and fresh from the academy. Her hands shook as she manipulated her console. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures at all 3 colony locations. The pattern, it's not natural." The main view screen shifted to show the Kepler's Garden system. Where the bustling agricultural world had orbited its gentle yellow star, only debris remained. But the debris wasn't random. It formed perfect geometric patterns, as if the planet had been systematically disassembled by some incomprehensible force. "Jesus," Marcus breathed. What kind of weapon could do this? Sarah knew. Deep in her gut, where 30 years of military experience had taught her to trust her instincts, she knew exactly what kind of weapon could atomize 3 worlds without leaving so much as a radiation signature. Galactic Council technology. The communication array crackled to life, filling the command center with the melodious voice of Ambassador Veltar of the Hegemony. The tall, elegant alien had been humanity's primary contact with the Council for over a decade. His species, the Villani, were known for their diplomacy and wisdom. "Admiral Chen," Veltar's image materialized in the center of the room, his forearms spread in what humans had learned was a gesture of regret. "I bring grave news from the Galactic Council. The human colonies of New Geneva, Kepler's Garden, and Haven Prime have been purged." The word hit Sarah like a physical blow. Purged? It was discovered that humanity has been conducting illegal weapons research in violation of the Galactic Non-Proliferation Treaty. The Council had no choice but to act swiftly to prevent contamination of other species. "That's impossible," Sarah snapped. "Those were civilian colonies, agricultural worlds. There were children. The Council's decision is final," Veltar interrupted, his large multifaceted eyes showing no emotion. "Earth has been granted a grace period of 72 standard hours to surrender all military assets and submit to Council oversight. Compliance will ensure the survival of your remaining population." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Sarah stared at the empty space where Veltar's image had been, her mind racing. 12 billion humans, gone. And now the Council was demanding Earth's surrender based on fabricated charges. "Admiral," Marcus said quietly, "what are your orders?" Sarah straightened, feeling the weight of humanity's future settling on her shoulders. In the academy, they'd taught her about impossible choices. They'd never prepared her for genocide. "Signal Earth Command," she said, her voice carrying across the silent bridge. "Activate Protocol 7. Marcus's eyes widened. Protocol 7 was theoretical, a last resort that had never been tested because the Admiralty assumed it would never be needed. "Ma'am, Protocol 7 is—" "I know what it is, Commander." Sarah turned to face her crew, seeing her own determination reflected in their faces. "Ladies and gentlemen, as of this moment, humanity is at war with the Galactic Council, and unlike our former allies, we fight to win." The lights dimmed as Terra Station's quantum transmitters began broadcasting Sarah's message across every human world in the galaxy. 3 words that would change everything. Begin the harvest. Was Chapter 2. The Admiral's Gambit, 71 hours and 37 minutes until the Council's deadline. Deep beneath the surface of Luna, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Dr. Elizabeth Kane ran her fingers along the hull of humanity's most closely guarded secret. The ship was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long, but looked nothing like the sleek vessels humanity had learned to build from Council designs. This ship was angular, brutal, and absolutely terrifying. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" The voice belonged to Admiral Chen, who had arrived via emergency transport from Terra Station 6 hours ago. "She's a war crime waiting to happen," Elizabeth replied, not turning from her inspection of the vessel's primary weapon array. "When the Council sees what we've built, the Council just murdered 12 billion civilians based on lies," Sarah said coldly. "I'd say we're past worrying about their approval." Elizabeth finally turned to face the Admiral. She was younger than Sarah by 15 years, but her eyes held the weight of secrets that made her look ancient. The Phoenix Project was supposed to be a deterrent, something to keep in our back pocket in case the Council ever turned on us. It was never meant to be used. Plans change. They walked together through the ship's corridors, their footsteps echoing in the vast spaces designed to house technologies that pushed the boundaries of physics itself. The Phoenix wasn't just a warship. It was humanity's declaration that they refused to remain the junior species in a galaxy that saw them as expendable. "How many of these did we build?" Sarah asked. 17 completed hulls. Another 33, in various stages of construction. "We've been working on this project for 22 years, ever since we first realized the Council's gifts of technology came with strings attached." They entered the ship's bridge, a cathedral of dark metal and glowing displays. Unlike Council ships with their organic curves and soft lighting, the Phoenix felt like something built by a species that had learned warfare in the void between stars. "Show me the weapons," Sarah said. Elizabeth's fingers danced across a control panel, bringing up a holographic display of the ship's armaments. Gravitational cascade torpedoes. Each one can destabilize a moon's orbit or crack a planet's crust. The Council's shields are designed to stop energy weapons and kinetic projectiles. They've never encountered weaponized gravity. "And the main gun? Something we call the stellar drill." Elizabeth's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "It fires a concentrated beam of exotic matter that can punch through a star's core and trigger controlled nova events." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Humanity had built weapons that could kill stars. "How long until the fleet is ready?" "The 17 completed ships?" 6 hours. "But Sarah, we're talking about going to war with a civilization that spans 60,000 star systems. Even with our technological advantages, the numbers won't matter if we use them right." Sarah activated her personal communicator. "Commander. Webb, this is Admiral Chen. Patch me through to the Phoenix Fleet commanders." The bridge's main screen flickered to life, showing 16 other figures standing on identical bridges. Men and women from every nation on Earth, united by the knowledge that they were about to attempt the impossible. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah began, "in approximately 65 hours, the Galactic Council will arrive at Earth expecting our surrender. Instead, they're going to find something they never imagined possible, a human fleet armed with weapons they can't defend against and crewed by people who have absolutely nothing left to lose." Captain James Harrison of the UES Prometheus spoke first. "Admiral, what's our primary objective? Even if we can take out their advanced fleet, they'll just send reinforcements." "Our objective isn't to win a war of attrition," Sarah replied. "It's to send a message so clear, so terrifying, that the Council will never again consider humanity an easy target. We're going to hit them where they think they're safest." Captain Yuki Tanaka of the UES Ragnarok leaned forward. "The Council homeworlds?" "Not the homeworlds. Something worse." Sarah manipulated the display, showing a massive structure in the galaxy's core. The Nexus, the Council's central command station, the heart of their civilization. The silence that followed was deafening. The Nexus was supposed to be impregnable, an artificial construct the size of a small moon, protected by shields that could deflect the energy output of entire star systems. "That's suicide," whispered Captain Chen Lu of the UES Valkyrie. "Maybe," Sarah admitted. "But it's also the one target they'll never expect us to hit." While they're organizing their fleets to glass Earth, we'll be carving our way through the core systems straight to their nerve center. Elizabeth looked at Sarah with something between admiration and horror. You're actually going to do it. You're going to try to kill the heart of galactic civilization. I'm going to do whatever it takes to ensure humanity survives, Sarah corrected. And if that means introducing the Council to the concept of total warfare, so be it. The countdown timer on the bridge read 58 hours and counting. Soon the galaxy would learn that Earth's children had grown up in the dark between stars, and they had brought gifts their elder siblings could never have imagined. Chapter 3. Thunder from the Void. 47 hours until deadline. The Galactic Council's advance fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system in a display of overwhelming force. 300 vessels of various Council species, led by the massive dreadnought, Harmony's Voice, a ship so large it had its own gravity field. Council Admiral Zarthek stood on the bridge of his flagship, his insectoid features clicking with satisfaction. The human homeworld hung before them like a blue marble, blissfully unaware of its approaching doom. Behind him, representatives from 12 Council species watched the tactical displays with barely concealed anticipation. Begin standard pacification protocols, Zarthek commanded. All human military assets are to be disabled, not destroyed. The Council has use for their infrastructure. The fleet moved into formation, energy signatures building as their weapons systems prepared to demonstrate the futility of resistance. Earth's orbital defenses were primitive by Council standards, barely more than toys. That's when space itself seemed to tear open. The Phoenix fleet didn't emerge from hyperspace like normal ships. They came through tears in reality, their exotic drive systems leaving wounds in space-time that bled strange energies. 17 vessels that looked like nothing the Council had ever encountered materialized in perfect formation around Earth's moon. Unknown vessels, Zarthek transmitted on all frequencies. You are in violation of Council space. Identify yourselves and prepare to be boarded. The response came from Admiral Chen herself, her image appearing on the Council fleet screens with crystal clarity. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. You have 60 seconds to withdraw from this system before we demonstrate why that would be in your best interest. Laughter rippled through the Council bridge crew. The audacity was almost admirable. Human Admiral, Zarthek replied. You face 300 vessels of the Galactic Council. Your 17 ships, while unusual in design, cannot hope to. The UES Phoenix fired first. The gravitational cascade torpedo moved slower than light, but space bent around it like liquid. When it struck the Council escort frigate, Peaceful Dawn, the ship didn't explode. It compressed. In the span of 3 seconds, a vessel nearly half a kilometer long collapsed into a sphere of ultra-dense matter, barely 10 meters across. The Council fleet recoiled in shock. Nothing in their databases had prepared them for weapons that could rewrite the fundamental forces of physics. All ships, Sarah's voice echoed across the human fleet. You are weapons-free. Show them what Earth's children learned to build in, the dark. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. The Phoenix fleet spread out in a formation that would have been suicide against conventional weapons. But their shields weren't designed to stop energy beams or kinetic rounds. They created bubbles of twisted space-time that made targeting impossible and rendered most Council weapons ineffective. The UES Prometheus unleashed a spread of reality shear, missiles that punched holes in the fabric of space itself. Council ships caught in the detonations simply ceased to exist, erased from reality so completely that their crews never had time to scream. The UES Ragnarok's main cannon fired a stream of weaponized dark matter that passed through conventional shields like they weren't there. Every ship it touched aged 1,000 years in seconds, their hulls crumbling to dust as entropy was accelerated beyond all natural limits. But it was the Phoenix herself that delivered the killing blow to Council confidence. Admiral Chen targeted the Harmony's Voice directly, her ship's stellar drill powering up with an energy signature that registered off every sensor in the system. The beam that erupted from the Phoenix's bow wasn't visible light. It was concentrated possibility. a lance of exotic matter that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. The Council Dreadnought's shields, designed to withstand the combined firepower of entire fleets, lasted exactly 0.3 seconds. The hull lasted 0.7 seconds. The ship's antimatter core, compressed into a stable configuration by Council technology that had remained unchanged for millennia, destabilized in a chain reaction that lit up the solar system like a second sun. In the space of 12 minutes, the most powerful fleet the Council had assembled in 500 years was reduced to expanding clouds of exotic particles and twisted metal. 3 ships managed to escape into hyperspace. On the bridge of the Phoenix, Sarah watched the debris field that had once been 300 vessels. Her crew worked in professional silence, securing weapon systems and analyzing battle damage. There was surprisingly little. The Council fleet had never managed to mount an effective counterattack. "Admiral," reported Commander Webb, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 Council outposts in this sector. They're offering to negotiate." "Tell them to contact the Galactic Council," Sarah replied. "We're not here to conquer territory. We have a more important appointment to keep." Dr. Kane approached from the science station, her face pale but determined. "Sarah, the quantum resonance from our weapons is spreading. Every civilization with sufficiently advanced sensors just witnessed what happened here. The entire galaxy knows that humanity has weapons the Council can't defend against." "Good," Sarah said coldly. "Let them know. Let them all know that Earth's children have grown tired of being the galaxy's pet species." She activated the fleet-wide communication channel. "All ships, prepare for hyperspace transit. Destination, the Galactic Core. It's time the Council learned that when you threaten a species' extinction, you better make sure you finish the job." The Phoenix fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a debris field that would puzzle Council scientists for generations. They were headed for the most heavily defended location in galactic civilization, armed with weapons that violated every known law of physics. And in the depths of space, something that had been watching the battle from beyond the edge of sensor range stirred with interest. The humans had proven themselves worthy of attention. The real game was about to begin. Chapter 4. The Heart of Darkness. The Nexus hung in the gravitational maelstrom at the galaxy's core like a monument to Council. Arrogance. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Phoenix watching the massive structure grow larger on the view screen. After 18 hours of hyperspace travel through some of the most dangerous regions of the galaxy, her fleet had finally reached their destination. The Nexus was beyond massive, an artificial construct that dwarfed most moons, built around a controlled black hole that provided limitless energy. Thousands of ships patrolled its outer perimeter, and defensive platforms bristled with weapons that could shatter planets. This was the beating heart of galactic civilization, the place where the Council's highest leaders made decisions that affected trillions of lives. "Sensor analysis complete," reported Lieutenant Commander Webb. "We're detecting approximately 4,000 defensive vessels, plus the Nexus's integrated weapon systems. Combined firepower could level a star system." "And their shield configuration?" Dr. Kane looked up from her science station. "Multi-layered quantum barriers backed by gravitational field generators. It's actually quite impressive. They've learned from our attack on their advanced fleet and reconfigured their defenses specifically to counter our weapons." Sarah felt a cold smile cross her lips. "How long would it take them to adapt? Based on our attack at Earth? Maybe 6 hours to develop countermeasures, another 12 to implement them across their entire defense grid." Kane paused. "Sarah, they've had almost 30 hours. They know exactly what we're capable of now." "Then it's a good thing we brought something new." Sarah activated her command console, bringing up schematics that made her bridge crew take an involuntary step backward. The Phoenix's main weapon bay was opening, revealing something that shouldn't have been possible to build. A device that looked like a mechanical interpretation of a black hole. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah announced, "meet the entropy engine, Dr. Kane's masterpiece." Kane's face went pale. "Sarah, that weapon is theoretical. We've never tested it. The mathematics suggest it could work, But the side effects could tear a hole in space-time itself. Sarah finished. I know. That's why we're only going to use it once. The communication array crackled to life, and the familiar figure of Ambassador Veltar appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Sarah could see the ornate chambers of the Council's inner sanctum. Admiral Chen, Veltar said, his 4 arms spread in what humans had learned was a gesture of diplomatic immunity. I must commend your species on its resourcefulness. The weapons you demonstrated at Earth were truly innovative. However, you now face the combined might of 67 civilizations. Surely you can see that continued resistance is futile. What I see, Sarah replied, is a collection of species so arrogant they convinced themselves they were dealing with primitive savages instead of a people who learned to make war in the void between stars. Behind Veltar, other council members appeared on the screen. Sarah recognized several species, the crystalline Zephani, the energy beings called the Lumina, and the ancient machine intelligence known as the Collective. The power gathered in that chamber represented the accumulated wisdom and authority of galactic civilization. Your colony worlds broke galactic law, insisted High Counselor Zendara of the Zephani, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that hurt human eyes to look at. The weapons research conducted there threatened every peaceful species in the galaxy. What weapons research? Sarah demanded. Those were agricultural worlds. The most dangerous thing on Haven Prime was a fertilizer processing plant. The silence that followed was telling. Sarah saw it in their faces, the micro-expressions that years of military training had taught her to read. They were lying, and they knew she knew it. The evidence was conclusive, Veltar said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. Show me, Sarah challenged. Show me one piece of evidence that those worlds were anything other than what they appeared to be. More silence. On her tactical display, Sarah could see the Council fleet moving into attack formation. They were stalling, buying time to coordinate their assault. I thought so, Sarah said coldly. You murdered 12 billion humans because we were becoming inconvenient, because we were asking the wrong questions and developing technologies you couldn't control. Because for the first time in galactic history, the junior species was showing signs of becoming something more than your willing servants. She stood up, facing the council members directly. You made one critical mistake. You assumed that because we were young, we were weak. You never bothered to learn what kind of species survives alone in the void for hundreds of thousands of years before developing faster-than-light travel. The Phoenix shuddered as its entropy engine powered up. On the tactical display, energy readings spiked beyond the scale of known physics. Admiral Chen, Veltar said urgently, whatever you're planning, consider the consequences. The Nexus contains the cultural archives of every civilization in the galaxy. Art, literature, scientific knowledge accumulated over millions of years. Destroy this place, and you destroy the heritage of 1,000 species. You should have thought of that before you decided to commit genocide, Sarah replied. Fire. The entropy engine didn't produce a visible beam. Instead, it created a bubble of accelerated time around the Nexus, a region of space where entropy ran backward and forward, simultaneously. The Council's shields, designed to deflect energy and matter, had no defense against fundamental forces of the universe turned inside out. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Parts of the Nexus began aging rapidly, while other sections reverted to earlier states of construction. The controlled black hole at its center destabilized as temporal forces tore at its event horizon. Defense platforms fired desperately at targets that existed in multiple time streams simultaneously. Sarah! Dr. Kane screamed over the alarms filling the bridge. The spatial distortion is cascading. We need to get out of here. But Sarah was transfixed by what she was seeing. The Nexus wasn't just being destroyed. It was being edited out of history. The weapon was unraveling the very threads of causality that held the structure together. All ships, she commanded. Emergency hyperspace transit. Maximum distance. The Phoenix fleet vanished into hyperspace, just as the Nexus collapsed into a temporal singularity. The explosion that followed wasn't just physical, it was metaphysical, a wound in reality that would take centuries to heal. When the Phoenix emerged from hyperspace 6 hours later at a safe distance, the galactic core was dark. Where the Nexus had been, there was only a stable wormhole leading to somewhere else. "Congratulations, Admiral," Kane said quietly. "You just created the galaxy's first artificial portal to another dimension. We have no idea what's on the other side." Sarah stared at the readings on her screen. They'd won. The heart of Council power was gone, their leadership scattered or dead. But the cost— "Ma'am," Webb reported, "we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Every major civilization is requesting immediate ceasefire negotiations. They're offering complete autonomy for human space. And the other human colonies? All surviving worlds are being offered full council membership with equal voting rights." Sarah nodded slowly. They'd achieved their objective. Humanity would never again be considered expendable. But as she stared at the dimensional rift they'd created, she couldn't shake the feeling that they'd done something that couldn't be undone. Something was moving on the other side of that portal. Something vast and patient and very, very interested in the species that had just punched a hole. Between dimensions, the galaxy would never be the same. The question was whether that would turn out to be a good thing or the beginning of something far worse than anything the Council had ever imagined. Epilogue: New Horizons. 6 months after the Battle of the Nexus, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the newly constructed Earth Embassy on the Council homeworld of Volani Prime. The irony wasn't lost on her. 6 months ago, this same species had been demanding humanity's surrender. Now they were offering trade agreements and technology exchanges. The galaxy had indeed changed. "The final casualty reports," Dr. Kane said, handing Sarah a datapad. 17,000 Council personnel confirmed dead or missing in the Nexus. Collapse. 437 ships destroyed or severely damaged. And the dimensional rift? It's still growing. Sarah studied the numbers. In the context of galactic civilization, the casualties were relatively light. But those numbers represented individuals, beings who had families, dreams, hopes for the future. The weight of those deaths would stay with her forever. "Any word from the deep space monitoring stations?" "The portal is definitely two-way," Kane confirmed. "We're detecting energy signatures consistent with large vessels passing through from the other side. Whatever's over there, they're curious about us." Through the embassy's massive windows, Sarah could see the bustling streets of Volani Prime. The city looked much the same as it had 6 months ago, but the atmosphere was different. Where once alien citizens had moved with the confidence of beings at the top of the galactic hierarchy, now there was uncertainty. Fear, even. Humanity had taught the galaxy that the rules could change, that technology could be turned inside out, that the seemingly impossible could become devastatingly real. Admiral Chen, the voice belonged to Ambassador Veltar, who had survived the Nexus collapse and was now serving as humanity's primary liaison with what remained of the Council. "The Integration Committee is ready to see you." Sarah nodded and followed the tall alien through corridors lined with artwork from across the galaxy. Today's meeting would finalize humanity's new status, equal partners in galactic civilization, with voting rights proportional to their technological contributions. It was everything they'd wanted, everything they'd fought for. So why did it feel like they'd won the wrong war? The Integration Committee chamber was smaller than Sarah had expected, a circular room with representatives from 23 surviving Council species. Many of the galaxy's oldest civilizations had withdrawn from galactic politics entirely after witnessing what humanity could do to the fundamental forces of reality. "Admiral," greeted Prime Counselor Yelani, a member of a species that looked like living gemstones. "We've prepared the final documentation. Humanity will have full membership rights, autonomous control over your territorial claims, and unrestricted access to Council trade networks. And in exchange, you agree to limit further development of temporal weapons and provide Council scientists with access to your gravitational manipulation technologies." Sarah reviewed the documents on her personal display. Everything looked standard, except for one clause buried in the technical specifications. This provision about joint exploration of the dimensional rift, she said. What exactly are you proposing? The council members exchanged glances. Prime Counselor Yel Ani's crystalline features shifted to what Sarah had learned indicated anxiety. The Ain entities emerging from the portal, Yelani said carefully, have been attempting to communicate. Our xenolinguistics teams have made some progress in deciphering their transmissions. They appear to be impressed by humanity's achievements. Impressed how? They refer to your species as the ones who learned to break physics. They're requesting formal contact. Sarah felt ice form in her stomach. And you want us to be your ambassadors? You're the species they're interested in, admitted Counselor Zarthek. Whatever's on the other side of that portal, they've been waiting for someone like humanity to appear. Someone willing to push the boundaries of what's possible. Sarah looked around the chamber at faces representing civilizations that were millions of years older than humanity. All of them were afraid of what was coming through the portal, afraid of what humanity might do next, afraid that the galaxy they'd known and controlled for eons was ending. Maybe it was. I'll need to consult with Earth Command, Sarah said finally. Of course, Yelani replied. But Admiral, whatever decision humanity makes about first contact with these entities, please remember that the rest of us will have to live with the consequences. Sarah left the chamber and walked to the embassy's observation deck. In the distance, she could see ships arriving and departing from Villani Prime's orbital facilities, trade vessels, diplomatic transports, and exploration craft heading toward the dimensional rift that humanity had torn in the heart of the galaxy. Her communicator chimed with an incoming transmission from Earth. The message was brief but troubling. Admiral, this is General Morrison, Priority Alpha. Return to Sol system. Immediately, we have a situation. Sarah closed her eyes and made a decision that would affect every living being in the galaxy. Set course for Earth, she told her aide. Maximum speed. As her ship prepared for hyperspace transit, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's real test was just beginning. They'd proven they could fight the galaxy's established powers and win. But what happened when the galaxy's established powers were no longer the biggest threat? The dimensional rift pulsed with alien energies, and something vast and patient stirred in the space between worlds. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's introduction to galactic politics had been merely the opening act. The real show was about to begin. The end.